The first sign that something was truly wrong was the silence. When I saw that Leo Vance had blocked my number, a strange numbness washed over me. For 3 years, I had been Chloe Vance, a wife always described as dignified, kind, and composed. I had played the part perfectly, ensuring my behavior was always appropriate for any occasion. But it wasn't until I walked into the quiet house and saw the divorce agreement sitting squarely in the middle of our dining room table that the reality of my actions sank in. I finally understood that I had crossed a line from which there was no return. His thoughts must have been a whirlwind of confusion, replaying the argument in his head. "It's been so many years since all that happened," he had said, his voice laced with frustration I knew all too well. "Sarah Ross just wants to make peace with you. There's no reason to keep things so tense. Today is her birthday, and she's your elder. She offered you a toast, and you should have accepted it. When you were younger, maybe you could blame it on your family history, but if you can't manage your emotions now, it just shows that you're not mature. How am I supposed to even think about having a child with you when you're like this?" Could picture him picking up the papers, his eyes scanning the neatly typed words before placing them back down with a sense of resolute misunderstanding. In his mind, he hadn't done anything wrong. Whether I accepted it or not, Sarah, my former best friend, was now my stepmother. My unwavering hostility toward her created constant tension in the family, making it difficult for him whenever a social event required my presence as his wife. From his perspective, the Sarah he had gotten to know wasn't the monster I made her out to be. He genuinely believed it was better to let go of the past and face the future with a more positive attitude. Thinking this was just the first time I had ever become so visibly angry, a part of him was likely still unsettled. His fingers would have tightened on his phone as he tried to call my number one more time, only to be met with the same impenetrable wall of silence. But my side of the story began earlier that day. The moment I saw Leo and Sarah standing together in the bakery, their heads bent over a display of cakes as they chose one for her birthday, I knew with a cold, sinking certainty that my marriage was over. To ensure I didn't repeat the same tragic mistakes my mother had made, I left immediately after destroying Sarah's birthday party. I went back to the home I shared with Leo, packed a suitcase, and walked out without a second thought. Not even 7 hours had passed since the whole incident. It took me an hour to pack my essentials, another hour to get to the high-speed rail station, and 3 hours to travel to the quiet town where my grandmother lived. In the final 2 hours, I sat in her cozy living room and convinced her to let me stay. "Grandma, I've told you before, your ability to judge a person's character is not exactly reliable," I said, trying to keep my tone light as I fed her a slice of sweet honeydew melon. "You chose a terrible man for my mom all those years ago, and now you've introduced me to another one just like him. You've managed to ruin the lives of 2 generations of women in this family, so you have to take responsibility for me, now." I smiled and leaned my head against her back, just as I had done when I was a little girl seeking comfort. Before my father brought Sarah into our lives, my parents had a good relationship. Neither my mother nor I could have imagined that 18-year-old Sarah, my closest friend, would develop feelings for my 45-year-old father, a man 27 years her senior. But they fell deeply in love, without any regard for the consequences. My mother had always been proud and strong-willed, and she couldn't handle the humiliation of my father wanting to divorce her for a girl my age, my classmate. In a moment of pure despair, she jumped from the 18th floor of their apartment building. Fearing that my father's new life would destroy me, my grandmother immediately took me to live with her. She watched me grow up, saw me pour all my energy into my career, and noticed the quiet fear of men and marriage that had taken root in my heart. Worried that I would end up alone after she was gone, she introduced me to Leo. His grandmother and mine were old friends, so it seemed like a safe, sensible match built on mutual respect. But she could never have known that Leo, while excelling in every other aspect of his life, was governed entirely by logic. In any relationship, he weighed the pros and cons, completely ignoring the messy, unpredictable world of human emotion. So when he deceived me into attending Sarah's birthday party, insisting repeatedly that it was for my own good, I wasn't entirely surprised. When he grabbed my wrist and tried to force me to drink the toast Sarah offered, something inside me snapped. I flipped the heavy dining table, shattering expensive plates and ruining the perfectly crafted birthday party. Then, I turned and pointed at my father's shocked face, my voice shaking as I demanded to know if he remembered what day it was. It was laughable, really. Sarah's birthday was also the anniversary of my mother's death. Yet, apart from me, no one seemed to remember, not even Leo. the man who once held me in his arms and whispered promises of comfort. From then on, he had said he would go with me to pay respects on my mother's anniversary. He wouldn't let me face the past alone again. On that very anniversary, caught between the bustling city and the quiet, lonely cemetery, he had chosen to drive toward the bright lights of downtown. He held my hand as we walked into the grand hotel lobby, and all I could see were large, glamorous portraits of Sarah celebrating her birthday, some alone, some in sweet embrace with my father. In the private dining room, she wore a pale purple strapless dress, her hair styled in perfect curls. She sat at the head of the table like a queen, the enormous multi-carat diamond ring on her slender finger so brilliant it hurt my eyes. When my mother was alive, she once told my father that for her 40th birthday, she wanted a diamond ring. It didn't have to be expensive, just a few thousand would be enough. But on that day, my father never came home. In the end, I used the money I had saved from New Year's gifts to buy my mother a small diamond ring myself. I remembered Sarah telling me once, "Chloe, I have a ring just like this one. Leo gave it to me last year for our wedding anniversary. It cost over $3 million. I tried not to look, but my eyes betrayed me, darting toward my father. I saw him gazing at Sarah with such adoration. When he noticed a stray hair on her shoulder, he carefully picked it off. It was a level of meticulous care my mother had never received. I bit down hard on my tongue, my body trembling with rage I could no longer contain. "Chloe, you're here. I'm so happy you could make it today," Sarah said, sweeping her gaze past Leo before landing on me. She stood up gracefully, the diamond studs on her nails glittering as she picked up a wine glass. The deep red liquid swirled inside. Leo saw my hesitation and, trying to smooth things over, picked up a glass from the table to drink on my behalf. But before the glass could touch his lips, I had already sent the table crashing to the floor. To this day, I can still remember the look in Leo's eyes as all those beautifully arranged, expensive dishes smashed against the marble. It was a mixture of disappointment, anger, and disdain. The always graceful Mrs. Vance was not so graceful anymore. I had embarrassed him. Looking back, it was the first time Leo had ever looked at me that way. When we first met, we were like any other couple. We hiked mountains to watch the sunset and went camping to gaze at the stars. On our wedding night, he promised he would never let me suffer, never force me to do anything I didn't want to, and never make the same mistakes my father had. Back then, Sarah hadn't yet turned her attention to him. It wasn't until I sensed a shift in him that I started looking into it. I discovered that for the past year, Sarah had been secretly contacting Leo, claiming she wanted to repair her relationship with me. For a full year, Leo hadn't said a single word about it. It's not that I never thought about letting my guard down, about treating Leo as a safe harbor and trusting him completely, but I'm grateful now that I always held a small part of myself back. Because of that, when everything fell apart, I was able to walk away. Sarah's betrayal and my mother's death had taught me a hard lesson. I could never fully trust anyone. Because of that lesson, I had been quietly preparing myself for this outcome for the past 3 years. I just never expected that 3 years of mental preparation would actually be needed. "Are you really sure you want to do this?" my grandmother asked, sighing softly. She knew my earlier joking was just a way to cope and that I had never truly blamed her. She just hated to see Leo and me end up this way. "Yes, it's better now while we still don't have children," I replied. After we got married, Leo and I had talked about having kids, but he always felt I wasn't cheerful enough. He worried that my mindset wouldn't be healthy for a child. He even enrolled me in psychology courses and arranged for a counselor. I told him he was more important to me than any counselor, but he didn't take it to heart. From the moment he started meeting with Sarah privately, for dinner, for tea, even for shopping and exchanging gifts, my mental state was destined to decline. While packing my things, I only intended to take what was mine, but buried at the bottom of our wardrobe, I found a hidden stack of shopping receipts. They were for everything from small keychains to expensive luxury watches and jewelry. They had been happily interacting, playing the parts of an elder and a junior, a stepmother, and a son-in-law. Honestly, Leo, if it had been anyone else, I might have considered my grandmother's feelings and tried to maintain a superficial peace with you, but you should never have chosen Sarah. I knew Sarah all too well. Back when we were still friends, she once complained to me, asking why my family was so well off while she had to live like a poor person. She joked that if she ever had the chance, she would take everything from me and make it hers. And she did. She took my father from my mother. Now, seeing my father getting older and his earning potential decreasing, She wanted to take Leo from me as well. Since you've made up your mind, I support you, my grandmother said firmly. Just don't be foolish like your mother. When my mother died, she acted impulsively and didn't leave any assets for me. When Sarah married my father, she took control of the family finances, and my own spending money was cut to a bare minimum. She just can't stand to see you doing better than her, Grandma added, her heart aching as she remembered my mother. A woman like that will get what's coming to her, she said, wiping a tear from her eye. I will live a better life than her, I said, feeling a surge of confidence built on 3 years of careful planning, better than all of them.